Good morning, everyone. It's Jonathan Tacadena here for MPC Markets Morning Call on Tuesday morning, the 17th of February 2026. So the big news from yesterday was that JB Hi-Fi pretty much kicked it out of the park in terms of their earnings, and I'll show you a chart of JB Hi-Fi down the road. But yeah, basically looks like there was a flush out at the lows. Nice good stop run, and I will show you that chart. But it feels like the lows are in, and it kind of reverses the trend of a lot of the retailers like Nick Scali got hit, or some of this like Temple and Webster as well. Some of the other retailers have just been absolutely punished in this early part of earnings, but JB Hi-Fi has reversed that trend, and so here we go. So the US was actually closed last night, so what I've actually done is put on a monthly chart for the Nasdaq 100. Here's the heat map, and you can just see that yeah, there's been some beltings there. Obviously, the big ones are Amazon down 17% and Microsoft. And Palantir, 26 or down 26% for the month. A lot of people are calling, a major top on Palantir. I mean, like, I don't even know what PE levels they were at, but I do know they were extremely expensive. And the market's kind of just pulled back there. I mean, like, could be a dip buying opportunity. Not too sure. I would have to double check the chart, but that's just the month to date. And you can just see in the chip space, Micron, ASML, still kicking goals, still heading on higher, and that's mainly because of there's still that sort of physical chip shortage out there, especially in the RAM and memory space. So they've been rewarded accordingly. And probably the other thing to note for the retail trade is that there's been a massive, I mean, like Amazon's down, but there's been a massive shift from Amazon into, back into Costco and Walmart. So while Amazon isn't, overly expensive in terms of PE and sort of their earnings, it looks like, there's a bit of defense being played, and, the physical stores are being rewarded here. So interesting that Walmart and Costco have been beneficiaries of that. And also month to date, Tesla's at the bottom end of the range. I do remember Netflix down quite heavily. There you go, down there, down 15% for the month. Still not too sure what's happening with that takeover, but I do have a Netflix subscription, so I do think it's a good stock. It's a good business model. Like the fact that they can sort of repurpose content from all over the world and bring it to a new audience. I do like that model. But it looks like there's some corporate deals at play, and the market wants to get past that before moving on to the next trade. So so that's the US. So it was closed last night. It'll reopen, and we should see some movement from them tomorrow. So here's the Australian market yesterday. So where's the JB Hi-Fi square? I can't quite see it at the moment, but you can just see it was kind of flat for the banks, down 1%. BHP and Rio down as well. Newmont a little bit higher. BHP actually reported this morning, so it'll be interesting to see that. I will actually bring up the major headlines for that soon. But yeah, JB Hi-Fi was the news of the day. I will bring up the chart fairly soon. But just to reiterate what I did say yesterday, I do think that based off the goals that South 32 kicked, BlueScope yesterday, I was expecting a good number from BHP today, and Rio later on this week. I do feel that we are in sort of the start of a phrase that's been thrown out there quite a bit, the commodity supercycle. But just in general, it just feels that with commodity prices at elevated prices, I mean, like we do see gold and silver, having that massive runs, while BHP and Rio aren't, major players in that space. They are major players in copper, and that's, hovering around that $6 a pound. I did see that South 32 was one of the major lines there in terms of their revenue, and the margins were increasing in that space, and I expect the same for BHP and Rio. So with that, I did mention that I did think that with the banks doing well, with BHP Rio lifting the index as well, and you can just see just from that market map, the amount of component that they occupy of the index. If those majors do well, basically the index should head on to new highs. It didn't quite do that yesterday. It hovered around the mid 89s, but I do think that will test 9,000 by the end of this week at the latest. So if not in today's session. So that's it for the market map there. I didn't have a chance to update these charts, unfortunately, but what I will do now is actually just switch to um, some charts here, and I shall go through that. So share something else, just ticking through a window. Sorry, just have to bring up my chart. Here we go. And I will share that window in a second. Here we go. So I've got my charts in play here. So what I'll do is I'll actually just give you a hint of what I do of a morning. So it's just generally I go through a lot of charts each and every day. So what I flick through is all the major indices. You can just see the XJ 200 kind of mid ball there. Like what I'm looking for is here. There was that good flush out the last Friday, and we had a good bounce from that. It did reject the new highs here, but we haven't formed any new lower lows. So I think the base is in there to actually head on higher. S&P now, you can just see, even though we had a softer CPI print, the market didn't, actually continue a bounce there. So, but, I am still sort of, mildly bullish there. NASDAQ 100 doesn't look as good. The Dow should look a bit better. Yeah, that punched out to new highs of 50,000. It has pulled back, but hasn't made new lower lows. Say, down at 48.5. So I'm still bullish the Dow. And the Russell actually had a good bounce off the lows after the CPI print. Nikkei, with that whitewash in the election over there, that did push out to new highs. It's just consolidating at these levels. Look, it is testing the lows, but even if it pulls back to say 54, unless it breaks that and makes new lows, that's still quite a bullish formation. Kospi, look at that, just continues to head on to new highs. I just remembered when there was talk of tariffs along there. They reversed that, and you can just see it's just grinding out new highs. Singapore just grinding sideways. China similar. So China and Singapore, or actually most of Asia, are celebrating their Lunar New Year. So most of their markets will be closed for the week. Down to the FTSE now. Look at that. Europe just grinding higher. Like, even though, if you read the headlines, Great Britain isn't going too well, but the stock market is doing other things. France, look, that's drifting higher as well. And the DAX, that's pretty quite choppy at the moment, but it's still in the top half of the range there. And then now we'll look at some of the commodities. So gold actually looks like it's hovering around that 5,000 level. It did have a bit of a pullback on the Friday. The weaker CPI did see the bounce, and now we're consolidating around the 5,000. This is a much more constructive chart than, so the silver chart at the moment. So you can just see silver had that massive run up to 120, and then that 30% move back down to 80s. We're around the mid 74s now, but I do think that it is still a solid chart. I think any bounce, any levels around here should be bought. I am still quite bullish that. Copper, bottom end of the range here. I would like to see that sort of 570 a pound level hold, like any move below that, and that's quite a bit of a turn for copper. But yeah, I'm still quite bullish that as well. And silver miners. Let's have a look at this chart. So this is from Friday. Had that bit of a bounce there. So that looks a lot more constructive than the actual silver chart itself. So just remember that silver is still around $75 an ounce. A lot of these producers, some of them even have negative costs, but let's just say their ASICs are in the teens. Silver going from okay, so let's disregard that move to 120, but silver was trading 55 to 60 late last year, and we're still here around 75. That's still a lot higher, even though we've had that sort of move from the highs. So these miners will keep printing money. You can see the gold miners, with gold at 5,000, a lot of people's ASICs is around 2,000. Massive margins, and and that's what we see in the earnings release, and I will talk about BHP fairly soon. But so they're the main movers. One thing I have noticed is that the dollar yen, so it's the carry trade, yen's actually strengthening a bit over the last few days. So even the Aussie yen, that's actually bounced back a little bit. So the Aussie is still around the 70 level. So it's still, a lot of demand for our currency, and mainly through the current through the commodity space. So yeah, Aussie is still the place to be in terms of the strengthening currencies. And now let's have a look at some of the bond yields. These haven't moved, but I did highlight these yesterday. So here's the 10-year yield. You can just see that's a 25 bit move in maybe just under 2 weeks. So that's a massive move. What could that be? A flight to quality. The market positioning for Fed easing as well, and there's just a movement into bonds there. So with that movement into bonds, there could be more sort of liquidity in the system, and that's why I think it just feels like this equities market can't pull back in any meaningful way, and I think we should see a grind back to the highs. I mean, like I don't think it's going to be an explosive move higher, but it just feels like that any dips are bought there. And I did talk about the flows into ETFs earlier yesterday. I can just say we had record inflows into that space here. So with money going to the markets, that money has to go somewhere, and it'll just disperse in most of these indices. So I am still cautiously bullish most of these indices, and here's the 30s as well there. So with that, I'll actually just bring up the JB Hi-Fi chart as I promised. So JB Hi-Fi. So you can just see that big green candle, that's the daily there. But let's just zoom in on a 5-minute chart. So here we go. Oh, I'll have to reset the settings. There we go. So what we had here, this is a 5-minute chart. So JB Hi-Fi had a massive gap higher. But then look at this. Look what happened here. Basically, there was this massive stop run down to new lows. So JB Hi-Fi opened above 80, got flushed down to 72, and then immediately crawled back above where it was trading in the previous session. So that is what you call a stop run. Like if you have CFDs with some of the providers and you had stops at 72, even though there was very, very little volume traded on actual shares itself, if you had CFDs, it didn't matter. You would have got stopped out. And that's why I think the lows are in for JB Hi-Fi. The fact that a lot of retail got flushed out here, and then now they'll be scrambling to either put that position back on, and I think it grinds back high from here. I think usually when earnings comes out, analysts take a day, maybe two, to plug those numbers into their models and coming out with re-rating. So I think JB Hi-Fi will re-rate over the next couple of days. We might see some buys at these levels. And we do actually are looking at JB Hi-Fi in our tech basket as well, in our fixed coupon notes. So that's why I want to highlight that. Let's have a look at the South 32 chart. So that's another one that is of interest for me, because there you go. So South 32, it made new highs on the earnings release and got hit just with this pullback in commodities. So if you have a look at FMG, that was the one that got hit the most. There's the FMG chart that got hit yesterday. It is earnings are coming up, so I do think that if it does stabilize, anywhere under 20s, I'm happy to buy some here for a move, into earnings. So they do have superlative margins. I think their ASICs are still in the teens. If they're selling iron ore for 100 or 90, there's still plenty of fat on the bone there. Meat on the bone, and I think it'll show up in their earnings. So earnings are, let's have a look here, next Wednesday. So yeah, if it does drift off and it does go under 20, I'm happy to buy some of that FMG as well. JB Hi-Fi, who else? So BHP, let's have a look at what it did yesterday. So BHP, it came off yesterday on the back of it, but you can just see that uptrend is still intact. So with the results that were released just today, I think that shoots it out of the park. So with that, actually, I will talk about maybe Rio. Let's have a look at the Rio chart. There we go. So a bit of a pullback here. So after the Glencore merger sort of was put on delay or postponed or actually cancelled, there was a move to new highs, obviously without that sort of overhang that Rio might be overpaying or this merger might not be beneficial. Had a bit of a pullback, but I do think that any weakness has to be bought on these commodities just in general. And let's have a look at some of the banks. So Judo released this morning. That's actually been on a good uptrend. Maybe not as solid as some of the big four. Let's have a look at the ANZ chart. That's been on a tear. There you go. So had that gap up and was solid beforehand. CBA chart. Yeah, so that was actually the weakest out of the big four for a while. That's now reversed, and I think that just in general, it'll just follow the trend on higher. If more flows go into ETFs, CBA will be a big beneficiary, and I dare say that that move down to 150s. I don't think we'll see those levels for a little while. Even though it is the most expensive bank in the world, is it the best in the world? Not too sure, but you might know that I'm a bit of a momentum guy. I like to go with the flow and the money, and I do think that that heads on higher. So just in general, it looks like my thesis is that we've had good earnings from BHP this morning. Judo kicked it out of the park as well. So that will set the financials and the commodities a little bit higher this morning, and I think that pushes the index higher. So just in general, stay long, enjoy this drift on higher, and while the VIX was elevated on the Friday, I do think that the bid will come back in the equities market in the US as well. Maybe people will start looking for bargains within that SaaS space that has been decimated. We might see that here in Australia as well. And I think it just drifts on higher. So with that, that's I'm going to have to get ready for the markets, which open in about 13 minutes. So that's Jonathan Tacadena from MPC Markets for the morning call, and have a good day, everybody.